everybody, it's Jackie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another Keanu Reeves movie review for you. Today I'm doing Destination Wedding. It was made in 2018 and this was after John Wick 1 and 2 and after Siberia. It's super cute. It pairs Keanu, who plays Frank, with Winona Ryder, who plays Lindsay, and they previously starred, 26 years ago in 1992 in Bram Stoker's Dracula. And in that movie they were both just so young, and they actually literally got married, but that's a whole nother story. But in this movie they're both single, and actually Lindsay used to be engaged 6 years ago and is on her way to her previous fiance's destination wedding. And Frank is on his way to the destination wedding. He is Keith's half-brother. So anyways, as they are in the terminal, Frank is trying to see if the flight's on time, and he maneuvers in front of Lindsay, who calls him out on it for trying to get in line on a plane that only has 8 seats. And she just she beats everything to death, and so she just goes off on a tangent about how he's cutting in front of her and compares him to a terrorist and all this, and he's like, I was just trying to get away from you because I can tell you're crazy. And so they get on the plane only to discover that they're sitting right next to each other, and of course he tries to change seats and he can't, so they try to do a little bit of small talk, and she's like, just don't talk to me. And then she has trouble opening her snack, and he's like, give me that, and he's like, you got to find the notch, and then he couldn't find the notch. And the whole movie is like that. It's like a he said, she said, tomato, tomato, and they're constantly bickering and they can't stand each other, and that's basically what the whole movie is about. So they get on the plane, they arrive at their destination only to find out that they're both waiting for a car and there's only one car. So now they have to ride to the hotel with each other. So they do that, they're still talking a little bit, and he asks her what she does, and she is the politically correct police. She basically prosecutes corporations for unethical speech, and he works for J.D. Powers in marketing. So he's in a self-congratulatory international business, and she prosecutes companies for hate speech. And so anyways, they're just perfect for each other. Not. So they just argue, and they get to the hotel only to find out that their rooms are right next to each other. So she goes into C, which I thought was kind of funny for a cat, and that was just in my head. And then he goes into D, which in my head was like for dogs. So cats and dogs, because that's how it is. So another thing that Frank always does is he talks back to the television. So he's in his hotel room and he's trying to pop his eardrum, and he always talks to the TV, and he's always going trying to pop his eardrum, and she hears him doing this and is like listening through the door like, what is he doing? Where she talks to plants and is always breathing on plants for photosynthesis. So they're both odd ducks, okay? And as they're settling into the room, she goes into his room because it has a Jack and Jill door, thinking that it's her closet, and he's like, looking at her, and she goes, oh, I thought it was my closet, and he's like, you're expecting an answer? And she's like, oh, there's a bolt, maybe we should use it. And he's like, yeah. So she goes back to her room, they deadbolt the door, and then he gets behind it and he's like, and she's like, what is he doing? Well, he's trying to pop his eardrum. He goes back to watching the TV, and he's like, whatever's going on, he'll go, nope, wrong. I talk back to the TV too sometimes, but it's just so funny. So he's talking to the TV. She's like, oh my God. So then they go to the rehearsal dinner. Well, the rehearsal dinner, they're seated next to each other, and she's like, is he trying to fix us up? And he's like, well, no, not even he is that stupid, because she was engaged, I think I already told you this, she was engaged to the groom, and he is the half-brother of the groom. So they're sitting next to each other by themselves at a table, and they're talking about the bride, they're talking about the groom, they're talking about the other family members, where Frank tells Lindsay that his father actually shot him, and his father married a younger woman, and his mother was terrible, and so that's why he's so messed up. He always has been, always will be. And then she just puts everything under a microscope, and so they go up and they say their hellos and their congratulations, and they go back to the table, and she's like, do you think anybody would miss me if I left? And he's like, no. So she flips him off, and she goes back to the hotel. She starts talking back to her plant and saying, you know, he's really, his father shot him, and she's kind of analyzing Frank, and then it goes to the next day. They're getting pedicures at a salon because in their guest rooms they had free coupons, and he didn't want to let the $30 value go to. And he's a cheapster. He takes all the soap, the shampoo, the shoehorns. He's so cheap. And he's like, well, why aren't you over him yet? It's been 6 years. Move on with your life. And she goes, you can't just move on when you're in love with somebody. And he's like, well, if they don't love you, then they're letting you know to move on to the rest of the 7 billion people in the world. And she's like, well, I can't just move on. And he's like, well, you're not normal. He tells her the whole time, you're crazy, it's super cute. So after that, they go to the wedding, and so after they've got their pedicures done, they have to go through the vineyard because it takes place in Paso Robles. So their destination is in a wedding. The destination wedding is in a vineyard. So he has to carry her up 90 feet up the hill because she doesn't want to mess up her pedicure. And he's struggling with carrying her, and she's like, I've never been carried so slow. And he goes, well, maybe he'll see you and put the wedding off, and he can marry you. And anyway, so they go to the wedding, and then they're talking crap about everybody in the wedding. They're talking about the pastor, and all of, they're just talking crap about everybody. So after the wedding, they go to the reception, and they're sitting together at the reception, and they're playing music, of course, and dancing, and he asks her if she wants to dance, and she didn't want to dance. And then the bride and groom are dancing, and he dips her, and she's still in love with him 6 years later. So she gets kind of queasy and said, can we just go for a walk? So they go for a walk, and as they're walking through the vineyard, they come up over a hill, and there's a mountain lion in the path. And so she starts going on, oh my God, you're the only person I'm the last person I'm ever gonna see, and this panther's gonna kill us. And he's like, I don't think it's a panther. And she goes, well, it's a whatever. And he goes, I'm not a zookeeper, I don't know, but she's just going on and on about what it is. And he's like, we gotta get out of here. So he does his and the mountain lion is just like, whoa, and he just keeps going until it runs off. So as soon as it runs over the hill, then Frank and Lindsay start running the other direction. He's like, run, run. So they're running, they trip and fall, and they tumble down the hill. She kind of knocks herself out. He thinks that she's dead. He's trying to revive her, and she comes to, and she's like, oh my God, you saved me. You are noble. And he's like, I must be crazy because I saved you. And so they're sitting in the grass, and she got the wind knocked out of her, and he starts talking about being miserable, and she's talking about being miserable, but she thanks him for saving her, and then he plants a kiss on her, and she's like, what the hell? And he's like, well, I don't know. And then he kisses her again, and she's like, what, Frank, what are you doing? And then she goes for it, and so she starts kissing him, and she's like, come on, let's just do it. And he's like, I don't have protection. And it is crazy. But anyways, he's like, well, I haven't been happy since 2006. And she goes, well, anyways, they wind up doing it up on the... It's crazy. He's talking through the whole thing. She's holding his tie, and he's talking about his mother, and she's like, stop talking about your mother. And the whole thing was just crazy. But anyways, so after that's finished, he's like howling like a wolf, and then she's looking around, and she's like, I did have a purse. So that's that. They go find the purse, and then they're walking back to the van after the wedding, and he's like, let's go back and she's like, let's go crack open your mini bar, and he's like, well, let's crack and open your mini bar, because he's so cheap he doesn't want to spend the money, because he figured it down to like 80 cents a cashew, and he said the wine's the most expensive thing in the mini bar, followed by the chocolate. So anyways, they go back to her room, well, it's his room, crack open the mini bar, take a shower, and they start watching TV, and then they're both talking back to the TV. So he's talking his crap to the TV, she's talking hers, and they spend the night together. Now, she's gonna leave at one point. He's like, no, stay, so you can figure out let's go see what happens on the TV show, and she goes, okay, I'll stay for that. So they spend the night together. The next day, he's trying to get rid of her. He's like, well, I'm gonna go take a shower, and she's like, because she's wanting to continue with him and maybe as a possibility see him again. He's like, no, it's just a weekend, it's over, do you have all your stuff? And she's like, whoa. So she figures out, I mean, he's totally trying to get rid of her, so she collects up her stuff and she does go, and she said, well, you know, he said, can you still hang out at the farewell dinner, and she goes, yeah, who else am I gonna hang out with? So they go to the farewell brunch the next day, and they pick up their goodie bags, and he's like, can I have your goodie bag? And she goes, yes, because my gift is my farewell to you. And, you know, she can't wait to get back on the plane and get away from him, because he just totally dismissed her. And so he takes her goodie bag, and then they go back to their plane. So they drive back to the airport, and they're saying their goodbyes, and she's like, well, you know, there's no reason to give out the number, and she's like, yeah, there's no reason, I don't need your number. This is all, it was just a, you know, weekend, and thanks, it was nice meeting you, and see you later. And then her taxi pulls up. So she gets in the cab, and she gives the driver her address, and she says, like, you know, 145 whatever street, and he goes, no, don't tell him your address, you don't know who the driver is. And anyways, she's like, Frank, you're holding up the line. So she goes off, and that's it. So she's on her way. Then he's waiting for his taxi, and then he goes home. So she's back at her home, and she's blowing on her plant, trying to get the photosynthesis going. And he's back in his home, and he's watching TV, trying to get his ear popped. And he's, you know, saying wrong, and, you know, idiot, talking to the TV. And he's taking out all the free stuff that he hoarded from, you know, his soap and his shoehorn and his snacks and everything that he took from the hotel room. And after he gets it all unpacked and he's sitting there, I guess a light bulb finally goes off in his head. And then she's at home wearing her PJs, and the doorbell rings. And so she opens it up, and there he is, and he just shrugs his shoulders. So if you're single, you're gonna love this movie. I had to watch it a couple times because they both talk so fast, kind of like I'm doing now, but you have to really watch the movie like 3 or 4 times to catch it all, because she's just like all the way through it, and he's just trying to get rid of her all the way through it. But they're both single, they're both miserable, they both can't stand their lives. And if you're single and you can relate to any of that, you'll just find it totally charming. It's a very charming, witty, super cute romantic comedy, and Keanu Reeves is just fantastic in it. Winona Ryder is just so cute in it. It was fantastic to see him again together, and I highly recommend Destination Wedding. It was just super adorable, super charming, and if you're just looking for some light comedy and you want to laugh your ass off, get Destination Wedding. You'll really love it. Okay, so that's it for this one. My name's Jackie. Please like, subscribe, tune in for some more Keanu Reeves movie with this COVID-19 thing going on. That's what I'm doing. I'm sick of watching commercials and repeats, so I'm binging on Keanu Reeves movies, and I've got a lot to share with you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, y'all. Bye.